Good morning, everyone. We'll wait as people filter in to our virtual open house. We've got 80 people joining us and climbing. We'll give everyone just a minute or two more to join. We've got people saying they have no sound. It's because we haven't started yet. We're just waiting for people to join. We're expecting about 200 and we are at 110 right now. We're all matching in our Christmas red. Yes, Alan. So good morning and welcome to the second ever Osher virtual open house. We are delighted to have so many of you joining us today. My name is Jill Meyer and I am the new interim director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Utah. If you have not heard the news yet, our wonderful director over the past 4 years, Lauren Anderson, resigned on November 30th. She will be spending more time with her young preschool age daughters during this crazy COVID-19 time when they need her the most. We will all certainly miss Lauren, but happily she promises she will be back to teach for us in future terms. With me today are the other two members of our Osher team, Sheila Jacobson, who is our very special events coordinator. Sheila flawlessly planned this event for you all today. Sheila, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm glad you could make it. And we're just really excited to begin our new term and to see what all our instructors have to offer.
Thanks, Sheila. And we also have Emily Miller, who is our very organized and very talented program assistant who keeps everything running smoothly for us all. Emily, do you want to say good morning?
Hi, everyone. We are glad to have you here and we hope you enjoy it.
Okay, usually at this time of year, we are gathering for our much loved annual holiday member luncheon at the Little America Hotel downtown. We all wore our festive red to give you the same feeling, but we know today is definitely not the same, but all the same, we are thankful to all of our instructors who agreed to present to you today and tomorrow to give you a preview of what they will be teaching this January and February. And if you're like me, this is the time of year when we need our instructors' passion and excitement for their subjects the most, especially during this strange year and the coming winter. So today we will hear from instructors, half of our instructors, in the topics of science and technology, art, history, and travel. Normally at one of our instructor previews, either at our luncheon or our real open house, we have the syllabi printed out for you to gather and read to help you decide which courses you'd most like to register for and maybe which ones you want to save for a future term. We have changed our website so each instructor's syllabus is linked to their registration page. Look for a red link to click that will open the syllabus and give you a more in-depth view of the instructor's outline and overview of the course. Emily has been very hard at work to create this wonderful new feature for you, so be sure to check that out. If you can't make tomorrow's session for the other half of our winter lineup, or if you missed some part of it today, we will be recording both sessions so you can watch again later. And you can look for those links on our website by the end of this week or maybe early next week. So tomorrow at 10 a.m. we'll feature the other half of our winter offerings. The topics we'll cover tomorrow will be music, literature and writing, politics and government, and health. For this virtual open house, we'll take questions at the end of each topic session. So this is a little different than what we did last August if you attended then. Please submit any questions you have in the Q&A bubble at the bottom of your screen. It's like the chat bubble, but it says Q&A. I will read your questions off to the instructors who will answer in a panel at the end of their topic's time. If you comment in the chat bubble, everyone in the webinar will be able to read your comments, but only I will be able to read those aloud that are put into the Q&A. So please just take a moment to familiarize yourself with which one is Q&A and which one is chat. This Zoom webinar feature is a little different from our regular Osher classes that you might be used to on Zoom. So Osher registration begins online only this coming Friday, December 11th at 9 a.m. Please try your best to register on our website since we're all working remotely. You can see us in a preview of our home environments. If you need assistance, the best and really only way to reach us is through email. Email us at osher@continue.utah.edu and we will help you as best we can on Friday with registration. So we want to thank you, all of our members, for sticking with us during this past year of adapting to our new normal of Osher classes going online. In spring term, we had about 20 brave instructors jump in and learn this new form of teaching, and we had about 400 adventurous members who enrolled. By summer term, we had over 600 members enroll, and this fall we expanded to almost 1,400 enrollments. So thank you for that. And we know that Zoom's not the same as in-person classes, but until we can gather safely together again, thank you all, instructors and members alike, for joining us online, keeping the wonderful Osher program going, and helping us make lemonade out of this situation we all find ourselves in. So with that, let's get started. Our first instructor is Julie Howell, who will be teaching everyday mindfulness. Julie works at the Huntsman Cancer Institute. She was unable to join us today, but I will read her material, and I can tell you that her class is wonderful and much needed at this time. So Julie will give us an introduction to breath and sound. She'll talk about mindful eating, introducing more senses when we eat, embodied mindfulness. She'll also do mindful movement, walking mindfully, which is wonderful if you haven't tried it, mindful listening, and of course, loving kindness. We have comments from class members who have taken Julie's class in a previous term, and I'd like to just read those to you. One member said, "This was a fabulous, fantastic course. We learned different techniques of meditation and got to try each one. Our instructor was so good. She engaged everyone in the class and had a way about her that made me feel comfortable. We did a Zoom class, but she added an extra class at Red Butte Gardens so people could do a safe, socially distant, mindful walk. She even offered that at 2 different times in case people couldn't make one of the times. I have used the mindful techniques on runs and walks, and it's wonderful. The meditation part is life-changing for me because it has helped me to get to sleep at night. It's good to try anytime, really." And another Osher member said, "Course was excellent, very helpful and rewarding. Time well spent. Distance learning, less than optimum for this type of course, but was handled well. The course provided the techniques to move past roadblocks and get moving on practice again." So if those were your comments, you'll know that we read them. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Tina Bartolome from the Salt Lake County Library, who will be teaching digital treasures. Tina?
Yes, I am here.
Welcome.
So I am a senior librarian with the Salt Lake County Library, and we started offering this class during the time when all of us were staying at home. And we just, in this current environment, all of us are doing more things from home using digital access than ever before. And sometimes making those transitions can be a little bit difficult. So what we have done as a team of librarians, there's 3 of us who all teach this class together. We alternate who's leading each class. We show you step by step how to access all of these different types of medias through the library. So we talk about digital magazines, ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, all of the free online classes that are available. And we try to do these by theme. So we'll talk about armchair traveling and hobbies and crafts. Each class will have a different topic. You can see the list on the screen. And we just are so excited to share these. It really is just so wonderful to have a wide variety of entertainment and learning options available. And when it's free, it's even better. Residents who live in Salt Lake County can access these for free with their library card. And for a small minimum fee, residents who don't live in Salt Lake County can also access these materials. If you're a city library user, some of the materials we teach are also available at the city library. So that's also an option. We will be holding a 6-week class this semester for winter semester, and this class will not be offered in the spring semester following. So now's your chance to really sign up if you're interested in any of these topics. We're professionals at Zoom now. We've been doing this for 3 semesters now. And we're just so excited to be able to offer these materials. If you have any interest in streaming video or, like I said, taking online courses, which obviously if you're in Osher, you already have that interest, we'll show you even more resources that are available to you. Let's see. What else can I tell you? The librarians who teach this class are experts. We really have an expertise in these topics, and we're happy to answer questions and help you get set up. If you've ever wondered what your library can do for you when you're stuck at home, this is the class for you. So that's all I have, Jill.
Thank you so much, Tina. We appreciate what you do for us, all of the librarians on your team, and we look forward to working with you again this coming term. Next, we have Alan Eastman. Alan, let's turn the time over to you. Oh, you're on mute, Alan.
Unmute. Would it be okay if I shared a screen? Can I share a screen?
Sheila and Ben, is that possible?
Yep, you should be able to share screen.
Says you disabled participant screen sharing. Okay. Okay, let's unmute myself again. Share the screen. Now it says you won't let me share the screen, so let's go ahead and go on without it. First of all, my wife took Tina's class last time and absolutely loved it. Am I unmuted, by the way?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay, she loved Tina's class, so I highly recommend that one. My class is on plastics. It's called Plastics, Boon or Bane. It's kind of a part of a series on the world we live in. I've taught classes on energy, water, air pollution, now plastics. Maybe I ought to do one on geology, then I'd have all the medieval earth, air, wind, and fire. But anyway, why plastics? What's the point of a class on plastics? Well, plastics are kind of ubiquitous. Just look around you right now, wherever you are. I did that in my office a few minutes ago, and I found at least 30 things made out of plastic that I don't know what we do without it. We'd go back to wood and maybe paper for lots of things. But most people have little to no idea what plastic is, where it comes from, how it's turned into the stuff that we actually use, and what happens to it after we're done with it. You need to know worldwide, there are nearly 800 billion pounds of plastic produced in 2018. That's a lot of stuff not to know anything about. So that's what we're going to talk about in the class. The other thing that people want to know about classes is why this instructor. I kind of have a unique background for this. I worked for 30 years for a big oil company that also happened to do petrochemicals and is the developer of the world's largest production process for plastics. I did marketing research in plastics for a number of years. I worked for years analyzing and reverse engineering plastics products. So I know this stuff kind of from the inside out. My background is in chemistry. I have a PhD from the U. More importantly, like a lot of the class members, I am incorrigibly curious. And as you noticed from the first slide, I'm an experienced, seasoned Osher teacher, especially on Zoom. This is a class that works. I think it'll be really kind of interesting. And if you're curious about what goes on in the world around you, this is a great class to dip your toe in and see what's going on. Oh, Jill, that's about all I have. You said 3 minutes. I've tried to keep it down. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alan. That sounds like a class that will answer a lot of questions I've had ever since I was a little kid. So thank you for joining us, Winter. Sounds like a great class. Next, we have Debbie White, who is teaching 3 classes in technology for us. Welcome, Debbie.
Hey, welcome. I'm glad to be here. The first class is one that I've taught a number of times. It's a single day class that's 3 hours long, but we talk about how to take care of all of the slides and pictures and negatives and VHS and VHS-C, all the different things that are older technology, the media that we can't see on our computer, and how do we convert that over to being on our computer. We cover how we go about doing that step by step. I tell you all of the pitfalls to avoid and what to do with things after you have digitized everything. And it's an interactive class. It's one to come with your questions as well. And I make sure that we've covered everything, and I'll help you afterwards as well with that class. That's all on that one. Internet security. This class it's so important. I'm not the most technical of the you know, we don't go into the real hardcore technical stuff. We go into the good, solid things that you can do in order to help protect yourself. There are a lot of things going around right now. I know of several people who have run into a problem with looking like Amazon is telling them that they have problems, and a big scam right now that's going around with having people buy gift cards to pay for things. And so we talk a lot about all of those things. Just note right now, don't pay for anything by a gift card. If someone's telling you to do that, don't let people get into your computer without you knowing really who they truly are. And even at that they may not be who you think they are. So we talk about a lot of that stuff and how to avoid it, and all of the top best practices as to how to keep yourself and your data and your money and all of that safe, so that you don't run into problems, or if you run into problems, how you can go about fixing that as well. Next one. The last one is a brand new class. We're going to see how it goes. It's a two-time class, 2-day class. The first is going to be telling you how to go setting up your own Zoom account and all of the how to set up a meeting and everything. And then for that week, you'll have the assignment of setting up a Zoom meeting with family or friends or someone that you can practice so that you can see. And then we come back the following week and we talk about what happened with that and all of the other important settings. There's a lot of settings within Zoom that you probably won't need and don't need to worry about, but this is how that if, depending on how the whole rollout of all this goes, this will help to keep you really connected still with people, so that you're already doing it on Zoom right now this way, but this helps to put you in the driver's seat of opening up where you can do some real fun things as to having, you know, sitting and having a coffee chat with a friend of yours on Zoom, or doing your a dinner with someone or your family members, and everybody connecting. Very similar to being in person, not quite as good as getting those hugs and things like that, but it's still a really nice way to go about utilizing another technology tool. That's it.
Thank you, Debbie. It springs to my mind that this might be a good class to recommend to a friend who maybe has been reluctant to join Osher online. It might be a good chance for them to get familiar. Do you think that would be the case, Debbie?
Oh, definitely. It's one of those, you have to be on Zoom to do it, but it's still the idea of being able to put yourself in the spot of getting more connections. And I think that that's the important thing that I've been noticing amongst my friends, as to, I've been the one setting up all the meetings and trying to teach them how to do it. So this, I think, will be fun for everyone to learn how to set up their own, so you can meet with your friends anytime.
Super. And so people will be able to ask questions as you go and interact.
Yes, all three are very interactive classes. We do a lot of question answer, try to get down to meeting the needs of everybody that comes to the class.
Okay, super. We have a hand raised from Patricia Pinelli. Patricia, if you can type your question into the chat, that will help us. And Linda Johnson has a raised hand as well. If you can just type that in, we don't have the ability in the Zoom webinar to call on you. So type in the question in the Q&A and I will read it. And in the meantime, while you're waiting for your questions, Alan, I have a question for you that might be on Osher members' minds. I read a very nasty article recently that said all of those plastics that we think we've been recycling, they've been lying to us and they're not recycling them. Will you address that in your class?
Absolutely. As it turns out, it's true. A lot of the plastics we think we're recycling do not get recycled. Some get recycled 80 or 90%. Many of them do not get recycled at all for various reasons. And we'll talk about why or why not things get recycled. By the way, if you wear a coat or a jacket this time of year that has fake down in it, 90 some odd % of the time that's made from recycled plastic pop bottles. So there is important recycling, but plastic bags from the grocery store are almost never recycled. So we'll talk about that.
Even if you take them right back to the grocery store, they don't recycle them?
Not usually.
Oh, that just kills me.
And we'll talk about why that works that way in the class.
You're going to make us take the class to find out the answer to the
Absolutely.
question, huh? All right, that's good. That's good salesmanship. Thank you, Alan.
Incidentally, I have a question for Debbie, and that is, are you going
Go
to
ahead, Alan.
Are you going to cover how to make sure that your Zoom calls are secure? We've heard about people crashing Zoom calls and putting unpleasant things on the screen. I assume you're going to tell us how to keep that from happening.
Yeah, the security things, Zoom has actually done a lot since some of that initially started happening. And so, yeah, we definitely will talk about all of the security settings, passwords, that kind of thing. But as a host, you can also kick someone out of your meeting automatically, or, that type of thing. But we'll talk about all of that. Good question.
Debbie, we have another question for you in the chat from John Bowles. He says, will you cover old 8 and 16 millimeter film?
We'll talk about how to do that. Yes. It'll be highlighted in there, but it won't be the main feature, but we'll talk about the techniques to do that.
Okay, super. Thank you. And then Alan, we have a comment from one of your fans who's also a fellow instructor, Jane Yeager, says, Alan's energy class was fantastic, so I can't wait to take his plastics class. You will be amazed and entertained, Jane says. Well said, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
All right. If we don't have any further questions for Alan, Tina, or Debbie, we will move on to our next segment, which is art. And a reminder to again, thank you for Debbie, Tina, and Alan. Goodbye.
Just one last
And,
plug for the library.
Okay, go right ahead, Tina.
Since no one asked me a question, I want to share one thing. My favorite resource that I've discovered through this class, because the library always has so much that I can never find it all, is a service called Quello, where you can actually watch concerts that have been live recorded. I can't wait to share that with you.
Cool.
That is a good tease. I would like to learn that. Thank you, Tina. I have a question in the Q&A about where do we get the syllabi for the classes? Went by too fast. The syllabi will be linked. Tina's I know is there because I checked it this week. The syllabi will be on the registration page. If the instructor hasn't submitted their syllabus yet, it might not be there. But for most of the instructors, there will be a link in red when you go to register, and you will see, click here for syllabus, and you will have it pop up in your window, just like the printout ones that we're all familiar with. And Tina did a great job with hers, and I know it's there. So you can go on her site and click on that, or and look on the other ones for the same. All right, if there's no more questions for these three, we'll let them go and move on to our next topic, which is art. We have our first instructor joining us. She usually teaches in person. This is June Bay. June, welcome. Oh, is June not here?
She's here. We're just trying to connect her camera.
Okay, super. We will stand by.
Hello.
Hello, June.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome to Korean Ink Painting Open House. My class goes to easy and fun. So share each painting's story and metaphor, and develop the understanding Korean painting and Asian paintings. You don't need a mask, no mask. You don't need a previous experience. Just enjoy the brush to rice papers. Okay, on class time, I will demonstration shortly, and then you can painting, you will enjoy your painting with your brushes and just brushy strokes. And we will learn basic 4 subjects: orchid and bamboo and chrysanthemum and plum trees. And class materials: brush, ink, and rice papers, and palette. And more detailed materials we will send to you by email before class. And my class times Monday morning. What a wonderful time. Started to happy week. I'm so excited to be your classmate, and we will be enjoy the happy painting. Thank you. Any questions? And then please let me know.
Thank you, June. How nice to be graced with all of your beautiful paintings. And
Thank you.
I tried painting with June before. I wish mine looked like hers, but if I keep trying, maybe someday. June, we have a couple of questions for you. We'll save till the end of the art section. So thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much
Hope
for joining
you
us.
are stay well and happy holidays.
Thank you, June, for being so great to teach this on Zoom. Next, we have Carolyn Cocciardi. Hopefully I said that right, Carolyn, who will be
Perfect,
teaching about Leonardo
perfect.
da Vinci.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Hang on. Mic came off here. Okay, here we go. We'll stop sharing. Okay, so here we go. It's wait, hold on here. Just one second.
Take your time.
Okay, here we go. All right, here. Let's get to the top here. All right. So go back to PowerPoint, share. Okay, here we go. Good morning, everyone. Come on here. It's not doing what it's supposed to do here. Let me start this again. Let me stop. Oh, sorry for the technical here.
That's okay. Technology happens.
Okay, all right. I'm going to just start over here. I'm going to stop it. Okay, let's see here. No, I got to start again. Oh boy, here we go. Zoom it is.
Beautiful slides.
I know, I just can't get the PowerPoint here to do what I'm supposed to do here. Let me try here. No. Well, there we go. All right. Well, good morning. My class is Leonardo da Vinci, The Shaping of a Artistic Genius, Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in the world, done by Renaissance painter Leonardo da Vinci. You know, Leonardo leaves us no clues about his Mona Lisa. We don't know if she's rich or poor or titled. The only embellishment we have on it is a little embroidery found on her house dress. And for some reason, it's gone unnoticed for the last 500 years. You see, we all saw the motif of the day, a chain of rings, four-leaf clovers. But in reality, it's a very sophisticated, geometric pattern made up by Leonardo of cruciforms, hexagons, octagons, and I call it the Mona Lisa knot. Now, the Mona Lisa knot is composed of 4 rows, and here's the very center design. It's found right at her breastbone. It's made up of 3 diamonds or hexagon. And look at this very unusual crossing pattern that Leonardo does. This is deliberate. This is no accident. And I asked myself, why, Leonardo, why did you do it? And then I spent the next 10 years looking for an answer. Well, along my research, I met 2 other Renaissance luminaries, Fra Luca Pacioli, who was a mathematician rock star. He's just written a bestseller called Soma. And with his newfound fame, he's being sought after by the courts of Italy. I know Leonardo da Vinci had a hand in the employment of Luca Pacioli to the Forza court for his own selfish purposes to learn mathematics. There would be no Leonardo da Vinci without a Luca Pacioli. And it was through his tutelage that we'll see a transformation in Leonardo's artwork. And this woman, history has crowned her the Renaissance woman. She's the Marchese of Mantova, and her name is Isabella d'Este. She's a ruler of a small municipality in northern Italy. She was the Jackie O of her era. However, destiny threw her a curveball, and she was married off to someone way below her status, to the Marchese of Mantova in a town you have never heard of. But Isabella didn't let any grass grow underneath her Chopin shoes. And she had a passion for art. And even though women of her era couldn't wheel and deal, well, she acquired a great art collection, and she housed it in her studiolo, a private gallery. And she let it be known she wanted her portrait done by the one and only Leonardo da Vinci. Well, the war broke out in Milan in 1499, and the Duke Ludovico Forza lost his kingdom, and the men, Leonardo da Vinci and Luca Pacioli, both employed by the Duke of Milan, are out of a job and out of a home, and it's their coronavirus moment. There are no spring chickens either. So with everything they own in that winter, they go 200 miles away and they come to the Castello San Giorgio, and their hostess is Isabella d'Este. The date, December 1499 to March 1500. Really, it's a blink in time. It's as minuscule as the Mona Lisa knot. Now, we know about this sojourn because there was a sketch done of Isabella by Leonardo da Vinci between these dates of 1499 and March 1500. And there must have been some verbal agreement between them, because what follows is a series of letters from Isabella asking Leonardo when she can expect her colored portrait, which Leonardo never refuses. What happens between these three Renaissance luminaries, Leonardo da Vinci, Luca Pacioli, and Isabella d'Este, will intertwine their lives forever. And I look forward for you to join me in January for Leonardo da Vinci, The Shaping of an Artistic Genius. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. If that doesn't cheer up your January, I don't know what would. That sounds fascinating. And
Okay, I'll stop
thank
sharing
you very
here.
much. Next, we have another January cheer-upper, Marcy Collette, who is the goddess, I can only say, of our Marcy's Movie Club. Marcy, welcome.
Oh, well, we're all goddesses of art and film. It's so great to be here, and I can't wait for January. I'm going to also try to share my screen.
Look at these professional Zoomers.
I've had a lot more time to practice while other people were trying to go through. So my real job is with the Salt Lake Film Society, which runs the Broadway and the Tower. And in 2019, we had glorious movie clubs in the Broadway. We saw a series of documentaries, and then at the end of the year, some of our favorite, which are award season. And we're in award season now. So the movies that I really track for award seasons that I expect to get, you know, the Oscars and the Golden Globes, I check on Rotten Tomatoes and Variety and IndieWire. So since March, the Broadway and the Tower have been closed. We've shifted to streaming some independent foreign documentary films online. These are films that are usually not available at Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu. So we started up this virtual movie club, and we're so thrilled that Osher pivoted their sponsorship to that, because the Film Society needs people who still want to have a communal movie watching experience if we're going to reemerge out of this new abnormal. The thought of people still wanting to see a movie together needs to prevail if we're going to survive. So we're really grateful for Osher and for everyone to supporting us through this movie club. I want to promote our free special event, which is next Monday at 3. That will be just a kind of more thorough guide of what are the movies we can expect for awards season. I'll go over a few of those really quickly. And then Sundance is, the Broadway and the Tower are Sundance venues. This year, Sundance is going mostly virtual. They do have, they are doing satellite, like 30 some satellites around the world, and the Broadway is one of those. So when we have that figured out, I'm going to beg Sheila and Jill to let us do another special event so we can kind of review what the virtual platform looks like for Sundance and what might be possible if you want to connect with the Broadway and the Tower. So be looking for that. Okay, so what we did in Movie Club is every Monday at noon, starting January 11th, you watch a movie through Zoom, or if you've got it set up to stream on your own devices, you see a movie that's on the Film Society's platform, which is slfs at home.org. And currently if you wanted to go to slfsathome.org, you could stream for $12 some movies, including a New York International Children's Film Festival, some Japanese and Chinese classics from the past few decades, which are really beautiful and gorgeous, and then a lot of other indie films and documentaries. And in Movie Club, just some highlights that we did this year was a great documentary on Agnes Gund, who's an amazing film art collector. And we actually saw a lot of films throughout the year around art. And after being inspired by the two art offerings before, there'll be plenty of art in movie as well. Also music, Ella Fitzgerald, just one of those things, was a great doc. And then things around social justice, including the John Lewis documentary just before he passed. It was one of those perfect timing things. We saw his movie and then he passed, and we just it was one of those moments that you did want to be with other people to see that movie in that moment after he passed. We also saw some international films, including Identifying Features, which I think will play strongly in award season this year. It's from Mexico. A classic, La Strada from Italy. Critical Thinking, which is directed by John Leguizamo. It was a Latino high school chess team that is based on real life. There really was this highly successful chess club of Latino American kids. And it was really, really great. Then there was this amazing We Are One virtual international film festival. So we reviewed some of those things that were put out for free. The biggest film festivals from Cannes, Sundance, lots of them from Asia, South America, Africa even. It was a really amazing thing. So that's what's great in this crazy time. There's all these possibilities, but you got to get together and be aware of them. I mean, there's so much content available out there. We all need to talk and exchange of our ideas. That's still important. Otherwise, you're just, consuming what Netflix is trying to feed you. I'm not sure. Am I running out of time? Here's a list if you want to note some of my favorites. One favorite that was universally loved by just about everybody I've ever talked to in Movie Club is My Octopus Teacher, which is on Netflix. So if there's one thing that you see in this season that will give you like really deep feelings, but also really positive feelings, I highly recommend that. Next Monday, we'll go over more deeply all of these titles for award season, and then January 11th, we'll start watching them. Really excited. Happy everything, everyone. I miss you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcy. It is great to have you as our own personal Osher Hollywood insider. So thank you for all of that. Our next art instructor is Jonathan Duncan, who will be teaching Sacred Mountains of the World for us. Jonathan, I love that you're following Marcy since you're also a photographer.
Comment on, you are so dead on time. Do you know that? Like to the
We're trying.
You're running this crazy show. I love it. It's like I'm supposed to speak at 10:44. It's 10:44. And I believe the last time you and I talked, Jill, you were the proctor for this very class. Is that correct?
No, I did history of photography. So maybe this time.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to try to share. I'm going to share screen. All right, now play. Do you see how seamless that was? I've been on Zoom
Very-
lately. So
very,
anyhow,
very
everybody, I just wanted to welcome you to come out and this project, this Spirit of High Places, it's been 30 years in the making, and it's probably the coolest project I've ever worked on. What this class does is it introduces you. It's not so much an art class. I can understand how it could be pigeonholed that way, because it does do a photographic exploration of some of the world's sacred mountains. But it's a lot more than that. It's a deep dive into the way that these places, these mountains, have influenced mythology and culture throughout time and across all continents. And so, you know, if you don't know me, I know some of you probably have never met me before. I'm the adjunct professor of adventure media and photography down at Westminster. And I spent the last 30 years exploring the world. You know, I've been through 35 countries on 5 continents. I've made many, many trips into the Himalayas, the Patagonian Andes, Antarctica, the Alaska range. And this is my passion in life. And so what I've done is crafted together this program where each week we explore a different mountain range, and we look at the way that these spaces have been viewed through the prism of the numinous, which is the word we use to attach to having a spiritual quality or connotation. And so each day there's a visual exploration, but then there's also kind of a little bit of a philosophical context about what these spaces mean. You know, I begin, I think coming up here, you can see the sense that this is a very visually oriented class. But I start one of my first conversations with this quote from Eric Shipton. He was one of the great Himalayan explorers in the golden age of, you know, the early 1900s or early 20th century. You guys, in those ancient times when men worshiped the elements, a region that witnessed the birth of rivers and greater storms was naturally regarded with awe. And so when the worship of the elements was supplanted with the worship of the gods, it became revered as their home. And that starts the context. And so I break down the course. Each week we look at a different lens through which mountains have been viewed. And so I quote Edwin Birnbaum up here in the book I used to inform the class, The Sacred Mountains of the World. They are regarded traditionally as places of revelation, centers of the universe, sources of life, pathways to the heavens, and temples to the gods. And so you'll look at different themes. Like one day we'll talk about the idea of mountains and embodiment, and the way that in the Puranas, which is one of the founding texts of all of Hinduism that's over 2,000 years old, they refer to the Himalayas as, you know, the embodiment of Shiva, who's the god of both creation and destruction. And we'll examine the way these spaces can be, it can invoke that sense of both creation and destruction, and the impermanence of Buddhism. We'll talk about pilgrimages, like, you know, Lama Dogen, one of my favorite lines is, we must bring to realization the path on which the self encounters the self. And so if you're getting a sense of the mood of this class, it's kind of mystical. It's a deep dive into the way that geography influences us. And I'll introduce you to mountain cultures all around the world. You know, I've in the last years, I've spent time in Ladakh in India and Sikkim in India, the Tibetan Plateau, and I'll tell stories. You know, I take us to places and you'll meet people that are living here in the 21st century, and they're living off of the grid and patterns that, you know, have been somewhat stable for thousands of years. And we'll talk about some of the biogeography of these spaces, you know, the animals and the plant life that has evolved to live in the world's highest places. And, you know, these are the Patagonian Andes, and we'll talk about what these places represent in our imagination. You know, like when you look at a mountain like this one here on the right, you know, it's Sierra Torre in the Argentine Patagonia, that evokes something. You know, that brings out something in our imagination. You know, there's a line about that says if Patagonia didn't exist, we'd have to make it up, because this is the mountains of our imagination. These spaces, they tap into something primal within us. This is the Lemaire Channel in Antarctica. And, you know, we'll talk about mountain climbing in its role in the modern day enactment of the hero's journey. You know, like people today, we still need to test ourselves. We still need spaces that aren't dominated by, you know, human design. And that's part of what these places enable us. And we'll look at beautiful photos. And the class ends is like, our mountain adventures offer a stage, you know, a loom onto which we can weave the story of what lives inside us. There's so much more possibility than we can imagine. So that is my spiel, you know, and I would really, I've had so much, enjoyment in working with the people that have studied this with me. This is a passion project. You know, I don't think this is a normal class. And I've actually created an ebook that is a companion to the class, and so you can have something that is a takeaway, a souvenir, if you will. And so I would love to see you. Come on out. I think it starts. Jill, do you know the date? Is it the 14th or?
It's the first week of class is January 11th. So.
Okay, so I don't have the dates right in front of me, but sign up. This is a cool class, and I would love to work with you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Those pictures are mesmerizing.
Oh, I'm so glad, Jill. All right, let me have you stopped my sharing?
Next, yes, next up we have Marty Siner, who will be teaching Old Masters. Marty?
Hi, Jill. It's great to see you.
Welcome.
I'm going to be teaching the class on Old Masters, Artists, and Masterpieces. I would like to share with you a little bit about my background. I'm trained as an art historian. My special area of interest is the Italian Renaissance, and I've traveled extensively and had the chance to see many of the works of art that we will be seeing in the class. The focus of this class will be an overview of the six artists who are considered old masters: Michelangelo, Leonardo, Bernini, Rubens, Rembrandt, and Van Dyck. I'm going to be trying to introduce some new material to you through for each of these artists. I'll be doing an overview of each of them for their entire career. And I just want to give you a little bit of a preview of what we're going to see. I'm not a Zoom master, so I'm doing the old-fashioned show and tell kind of thing. So for Michelangelo, we will be seeing a new work of art, that's 500 years old, but has been newly recognized from the hand of the young Michelangelo, whose early training has always been a mystery. We don't know much about Michelangelo's early training, and there's been a breakthrough in the past 10 years about that, and I will be just discussing that with you. I have seen this work of art, and I'll have my own comments to say about that. For Leonardo da Vinci, we will be looking at one of his masterpieces that's been in the news quite a bit lately. This is my old-fashioned show and tell. I don't know much about Zoom yet. This is called The Savior of the World, Leonardo's masterpiece that sold at Christie's auction house in 2017 for $450 million. I've seen these works of art firsthand, and I'll be talking about those. I'll also be talking about individual little stories that are quite interesting. Bernini creates the bronze canopy over the papal altar in St. Peter's Basilica from recycled bronze. Essentially, he ripped the bronze off the Pantheon in Rome and used it to create the bronze canopy over the Pope's altar in St. Peter's. We'll learn a little bit about Rembrandt, who got in real trouble, financial trouble at the end of his life, where he went bankrupt, and he actually went to great lengths as far as taking money from his daughter's money box, or he raided his daughter's piggy bank to support his habit of buying art. That was his biggest downfall. So there are interesting individual stories about each of these artists that I'll be bringing into the picture as we go through the course. I look forward to meeting all of the art lovers who might be interested in taking this class. I will be taking the class on Leonardo myself that Carolyn is offering. I'm sure I'll learn something from that. I have the theory that I'm never too old to learn, and that I always learn from my students, and the Osher students always bring a great deal to the table. So thank you for your time. I appreciate that, everyone, and stay safe. Any questions or comments, Jill, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you so much, Marty. We do have some questions. We'll save them till the end of the art section and call you back at that point.
Okay, thank you.
brings up a wonderful point. We're going to have our own Osher Renaissance community this term. Once you're teaching an Osher class, you're entitled to have a complimentary class during the term that you're teaching. So it's great when instructors and members can all collaborate and learn from each other. That's a wonderful highlight that Marty just gave us. Next, we're going to continue our Italian theme with Alessandro Vicchiet. Hopefully I said that correctly. Alessandro, are you here today? He is joining us.
Yes, I am. Good
Buongiorno.
morning from my evening in Milan. So my name is Alessandro Vecchietti, and I'm a cultural historian specialized in Italian civilization. This short series of lectures, because you saw the title, so we cannot go through the Middle Ages just in one single lecture. This short series of lectures will be focused on a sort of unique experience, because Italy is this sort of lucky land in the middle of the Mediterranean. So it always been at the center of every migration, but especially every invasion, from approximately 1400 BC to 1800 AD. And when I say unique experience, what I mean is that if you are being invaded by barbarians or some what we call uncivilized tribe, you better save and preserve what your heritage is. But if you are being invaded by way more sophisticated cultures, such as the Greeks or the Phoenicians or the Arabs during the Middle Ages, well, you adjust and try to learn as much as possible from their tradition and their knowledge. I give you just one example, and is this. You may know during the Middle Ages, the Arabs just invaded and conquered the southern part of Italy, especially Sicily. They settled down and started this amazing period of, we will call medieval Renaissance. It's not a medieval Renaissance, but in Italy, we call this a very special time. What they did was they imported their own traditions, their own culture, and they lasted 200 years. When 200 years later, the Normans kicked the Arabs out, the Normans kept Arabic artisans to decorate Christian churches. And they kept the Arabic language for 100 more years as the official language in Sicily, because they recognized that this culture was so perfect that it was worth it. So now we have Catholic churches painted and decorated by Arabic artisans with Arabic patterns. It's a mess, but it's a nice mess. So when you see Italian art, there's always some tradition that comes from somewhere else, and we will try to see what's behind the curtains. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. That sounds fascinating. I learned something already. Next up, we have Scott Williams, who will be teaching law in film. Scott, are you here?
Scott's here. He's just getting connected.
Okay, we're taking a bit in between times, but I feel like we have a thorough grounding in art history after the last three.
So I'm going to share my screen.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. Okay, can you see that screen okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, and I'll optimize. So my name is Scott Williams, and I'm a retired lawyer. So I'm a little uncomfortable being with all of these amazing artists. However, I love good movies, and I've enjoyed studying for some years now the art of film production. So this course is designed to use the popular culture of film to provide a greater understanding of law, lawyers, and the legal system in general. So everyone will watch a movie, at least one. They can watch more than one if you wish, but one movie a week during the week, and then come prepared to discuss the legal issues raised and the extent to which the films are realistic. We will also discuss the film production process for each of these wonderful movies. So look at the syllabus to see which movies we'll be covering, and I'll be around to answer any questions. But I'm going to now, okay, that's it. I'll see you at the question and answer point.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm so impressed that you are willing to risk showing those films, and I'm so excited we got to see some films. Thank you for doing that.
You bet.
And thank you for being the interdisciplinary parts of our arts section. We'll finish up with one more art historian. We have joining us today Colleen Wood, who is a retired AP Art History from Skyline High School. Colleen will teach great artists who capture an age. Colleen, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm wondering if I could get, let me try the screen share for just a moment. This format looks a little different. I had sent Sheila the one slide that I wanted to show. I don't have it. Oh, here we go.
He's got it for you, Colleen. And now
okay, that looks great.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, a couple of those artists are blocked out. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm absolutely blown away by the offerings presented so far. I think I want to take every class. I have taught AP Art History. My background, I graduated in French and history. I've taught anthropology and a number of other social issues, and but I've always been attracted to art history and to the great artists and the passion that these people have brought to our lives over time. So Marty and I look like we're teaching just about the same course, but I have chosen 6 artists that I think really captured their age in terms of politics, philosophy, religion, the economy, and so forth, and have presented astounding new advances in art and a whole new way to see the world. Michelangelo, of course, and all of these men, of course, are great figures of their times who reflect everything that's going on in terms of background in culture and society. Michelangelo, we're all familiar with, but I have just, the one thing that makes it wonderful to teach is that you keep reading and you discover new things and dispel myths and so forth and enlighten yourself. Michelangelo, I think we've all heard the story about how he painted the ceiling on his back and scaffolding and so forth. And recent books have kind of dispelled some of those myths. His creative genius was so broad, very much like Leonardo da Vinci. But no one lived as long as he did, and he certainly really lived through 2 or 3 different ages, if you will, politically and religiously. The next figure is Bernini, and this is like Marty's as well, but Bernini really captured the Counter-Reformation of Rome and the Baroque. And his art is so exceptionally gorgeous that I think it's worth seeing. He was an architect. He did do some painting, but he was primarily a sculptor as well, and his works are absolutely breathtaking. Caravaggio, I enjoy because he was the most unlikely artist in the sense that he was, as syllabus said, criminal. And in point of fact, he died because he had to escape Rome because he had been involved in some violence. And he was actually attacked on his way 10 years later or whatever, coming back to Rome, and he died at that point in 1610. And in terms of the Baroque, he dies very early on, but his style is so captures the imagination and shocks many art aficionados because he shows such incredible realism and illusionism. His personality is incredible, but his art pulls you in and explains religious scenes like no other. The next one is Rembrandt. And Rembrandt, of course, is part of the Baroque era as well, the 1600s, but he came from a Protestant country. And Rembrandt chose to see light in a very different way. And he paints his paintings with incredible psychological interpretation and passion. And he investigates the human soul through oftentimes through his portraits and self-portraits like no other. And of course has left us with a whole different flavor of the age, because being from a Protestant country, and why would that make difference? I think that's an interesting thing to pursue. Louis David is in the 1700s and goes through the 1800s. And he was a man who was trained in neoclassicism, but he also was a man very deeply involved in politics and very well almost got himself executed after the French Revolution because of his involvement in the violence of the terror. But he was a leader of an age, and many of his of the students in his studio really were captured by his prolific art, and continued on into Romanticism. And the final one, of course, is Goya. Goya painted in Spain, of course, at this time, and he had a style that was very unique to him and captured some of the awesome and the terrible that really very much plants him firmly within Romanticism. He explored not only painting, but he did printmaking as well, and has some absolutely violent kind of deep-seated psychological interpretations of life and the human existence and the human spirit. I love this art. My art is, we'll get something of the personalities, much of the style, and try to place it in its period in time. And I'm just delighted to be here.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Your passion for art certainly comes through and makes me want to take your class. We now have time for a few questions. If we can call back our art panel, we have a couple of questions for June Bay on how to get the art supplies and where should we buy them. June, if you're there and can answer that, that would be great. I don't see you. So in the meantime, let's go to Marcy. Marcy, there was a question that I missed. I think I was distracted by the chats. Something about a 40-year-old version available in 2020. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that is a phenomenal film. It's on Netflix, and it's a 40 as in 40-year-old version, like the best version of yourself, not another word that sounds like it. It's by Rada Blank. It was a Sundance success. Darling, she won a directing award. She wrote, directed, starred in it. And she's hilarious, but it's also deep. It's based in New York. It's about a woman just reinventing herself. She's an artist, she's a playwright. She starts to want to be a rapper at age 40 in New York. And it's just really funny, but it's not sugary. It's deep and yeah, I highly recommend it. Everyone I know.
Okay. That was a question. Was it a typo? So now I get the joke.
Oh, okay.
40.
Yeah.
Okay. And then June has rejoined us. June, can you tell us about the art supplies, where to buy them for your class? And you are on mute, my dear. If you can unmute June. Excellent.
Okay. And mostly in Salt Lake City, and go to the Phillips Gallery or Brick, art supply bricks, or you can order the online, like Amazon.com or any other art supply company. So, and I will make more detailedly what kind do you need, and we'll send to email. But
Okay.
it's easy, not too hard, easy to
We will get that out to anyone who registers. And I just want to read this comment. Linda Reed said, I have taken June's class multiple times and will take it again. She is an incredibly kind and generous teacher and makes the class fun. She gives us confidence when we feel shy about our painting. So thank you for that, June.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You will be nice painter and then happy painting. So, and I think we'll be starting to next month. Will be exciting. So, and then I can do a little bit demonstration, and then if you have any questions, and then tell me, and then we can share the everything, like a brush stroke or paper preparation, and or some controlling ink, everything, and then we can do share. So thank you very much.
Thank you, June. We have time for one more question, which maybe one of our 4 instructors teaching about Italian art history can answer. We have a Osher member who wants to know, will you discuss the Bruges Madonna by Michelangelo?
Yeah.
June will.
Yeah.
What about Colleen, Marty, or I assume Carolyn won't, since she's.
I won't be.
No, thank you. Yeah.
I won't.
And then that one is a more little bit different, the Western style and the Eastern style. And the Western styles, if we make it sun and just a circle, and that one's, oh, this one's sun or moon. But in Eastern styles, more thinking about the space, just like outdoor, outside, and environment, and then we can express. That is a totally different. So, and when I came here, and then I'm always thinking about how to involve the Asian painting to Western style, but that is still, we have to research and doing more. So,
Thank you very much, June. Marty, will you be discussing the Bruges Madonna?
I will not be including the Bruges Madonna in my lecture. I think I heard someone else will, and I'd be very interested in that. Was Colleen or Carolyn going to?
No, I had not planned to do so.
Okay, how about you, Alessandro? No Bruges Madonna for you?
Not really.
Well, this could be a course for next spring. Okay, thank you all for your questions. We are going to try to keep our time and move on to history, which our first instructor for history will be Mr. Chip Garanti. Chip, are you ready to roll? Just transitioning from art, saying goodbye to all of our wonderful art instructors, and hello to our history instructors. And the first one is Chip Garanti. Chip, take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. Where's my screen? I need to see me. So
must be off, Chip.
say again. Start my video.
Off.
Hold on. Technology, it's gone mad. There we go. How's that? Is it looking good?
Yes.
Right. Can you place me on the main screen here? Anyhow, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chip. I'm an American that grew up in the UK. In the 70s, I actually joined the army for a couple of years and then went back to Europe. I then got into reenactment, and I started off in a Western club and then moved on to a Civil War club, and then eventually World War I and World War II. Initially, you would be getting the uniforms and equipment together. And here's a image of the uniforms. Now, I take it that the audience can actually see that camera view, can they?
Yes, we can.
Okay, lovely. And so the first thing you do as a reenactor is you get your uniform together. Then you will get your weapons and little pieces of equipment. And before long, you become authoritative on the subject of whatever impression you're doing. And so you move from sort of reenactment into becoming a historian. Like I say, I deal with a sort of show and tell of the sort of pieces of equipment that a soldier from the Civil War, World War I or World War II would actually be carrying with them or have on them. Or what they could purchase from the PXs and so on and so forth, or the supplies, the sutlers and so on. When we're not dealing with COVID, it would be a hands-on, so that the students would actually be able to look at the rifles, hold them, fix bayonets, unfix bayonets, and that sort of thing, hold a hand grenade. But right now, what I'm going to try to do is actually, with the multiple cameras, be able to allow you to get as close as in the luxury of your own sitting room. Now, as a sneak preview to what I'm going to be talking about, one of the subjects is the poppy. Now, this was actually an American woman that made the poppy popular. This is a buddy poppy. That's an American poppy. This is the British poppy. These are worn in November time to commemorate well, now it's all the wars, but at the time it was the passing of the World War I soldiers. You notice the leaf is pointing to 11 o'clock because it was the 11th hour on the 11th day on the 11th month that the guns fell silent in World War I. In England, for the 100th anniversary, they created a poppy for the women in the British and Commonwealth that actually died in uniform. This is what the poppy looks like. And on the back, it says, "Least we forget." Now, with each poppy that was actually sold, they didn't just make, say, 100,000 or whatever to sell. They actually made them for the individuals that actually died. And our certificate, if you can see that, is a Jessie Brown Jagged. Now, she was a matron in the Canadian Army, and she was in Greece on Lesbos. And she died of, just to remind myself, she died of dysentery, and she was aged 44. Now, a little while back, I actually saw, and you might have even seen this too, this particular film, which is the Anzac Girls, about nursing during World War I. And lo and behold, can you put my image back up so I can see the screen? Lo and behold, hold on a minute, just bear with me. And Jill, could you put my screen back up so I can see what I'm...
Your screen is still up. We just have a few more seconds before we need to go to our next presenter. Can you sum up real quick for us?
Okay. What I was going to show you was that in that film, there is actually a moment where they see this Canadian nurse die, and they mention her by name. So when we actually got this poppy, we never realized that it was actually featured in a program. So that, like I say, is one of the little nuances of what I try to find and dig into when I'm looking at these particular histories. So I hope you can join me in January and enjoy this collection and the trivia that I have stacked up. I hope to see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chip. Show and tell was always my favorite time in grade school, so I'm so glad I haven't outgrown it as an Osher member. Next up, we have Steve Hall, who will be teaching World War II in Western Europe. Steve, we'll turn the time to you.
Sure. This is ironic. I end my World War I lecture with "In Flanders Fields," the last verse, "Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from wounded hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us or die, we shall not sleep ere poppies grow in Flanders Field." And every time I see a poppy, that comes to mind. But we're going to talk about World War II quickly right now. World War II in Western Europe. My slot typically is Tuesdays at 9:30 to 11:30. And we're going to cover the things that you see here. The lectures, setting the stage is an entire lecture by itself that starts from 1939 and brings us up to when most people think World War II for Americans began at D-Day. It began well before that. So we'll set the stage. We'll cover D-Day in some pretty good detail, a lot of firsthand knowledge there. Race across France, two what I call standalone topics: African Americans in World War II. Most people have no idea the number of African Americans who participated and the level of their contribution. The same with women. 384,000 women wore their uniform in World War II, and I think it's just one of my favorite subjects. We'll wrap up then going from Bastogne to Berlin, and that will take us through World War II in Western Europe. Those are the whats. The whats are pretty common in history classes. I think ours distinguish themselves by the whys. The Osher audience loves the whys. Why did we do this? Why did we go there? Why did we do it when we did? And I love dealing into that. So a large portion of my class is, in addition to the whats, is the whys. And World War II in the West is meant to fit between World War II in Eastern Europe that we just finished and World War II in the Pacific. But this time we're going to do something a little bit different. If somebody will press a button for me. This is what our typical schedule looks like. We do a post-mission recap that goes to 9 o'clock. Then we take a break for 15 minutes, do the pregame for the coming lecture, and we then lecture from 9:30 until 11:30 with open discussion in the middle. Press the button, please. This time we're going to do something different. For that 15 minutes between post-mission recap ending and pregame beginning, we're going to do something I call dancing in the dining room. This last semester, 2 times, we brought a piece of music to the lectures. I learned how to embed it, so I didn't have to go offline and take those risks. So we're going to have 15 minutes between 9 o'clock and 9:15 when the marvelous music, Mr. Duke Ellington, Take the A Train, the Andrews Sisters, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, Mr. Glenn Miller, 15 minutes of that. And at the end of it, if you're not in the mood, which was Glenn Miller's biggest seller, if you're not in the mood for World War II history, then go shovel snow, because I can't make it any better than that. So something a little bit different. Everyone loves music. Gosh knows I do. And just a little bit of a different part that we're going to insert into our class. Tuesdays, 9:30 to 11:30, the regular lecture preceded by the pregame like we do. And lots of time for questions from that marvelous Osher audience that asks the greatest questions that make any historian better. So, Jill, that's what I intend to do. I'm sorry. I did forget one thing. There will be, during the dancing in the dining room, I expect to see people up doing the foxtrot. In case you've forgotten, it's slow, slow, quick, quick. And for those of you, particularly the ladies, who don't have an immediately available partner or need a little bit of training, yes, I will make house calls and we can practice the foxtrot before the class begins, because I expect to see people dancing around the dining room. Now that's just what we're going to do. So, and thanks for reminding me, Jill.
Thank you.
That's what I have.
That was Sheila pushing the buttons on your impressive slides, and Steve has taught this class a lot of times, and every time it gets even better. So I can't wait to see the musical edition. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Next up in our lineup of historians, we have Walter Jones, who will be teaching Korean War history. Walter, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm just bringing up my slides now, except they're not coming up. There. I teach the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. I'm having a little trouble here. Okay, there we go. This is called the Forgotten War. We follow Steve Hall's Second World War, and I will pile on. Basically, I want to talk about the politics. Why did we get into the war? This, by the way, is a Marine captain, but here are some of the reasons I asked, why did we get into the war? Look at these people. These are top level officials not respecting that war. Now, here is a fantastic book about the Korean War, 1963, reprinted 1994, reprinted 2000, with many more maps and a fantastic chronology. Now, let me get rid of this just for a second. Go ahead and read this just for a minute, and then I'll talk about what this implies. The statement in this is pretty sad. The Korean War rapidly became the most forgotten war in American history, but it shouldn't be. So I want to bring it into some light a little bit. Oh, wrong button. I used to teach this class. I taught it 4 times. I used to teach it with Dick Raybould, who was a member of Osher. I went to see him in September to see if he was willing to teach it again, because he's a Korean War veteran who had fantastically dramatic experiences in the first part of the war, but Dick died. So I'm going to do it without him. I get a little sad when I think about Dick. The class will be 9:30 to 11 o'clock on Thursdays. Now, I've upgraded the PowerPoints for this class, so it's a better course than I've taught before. I'll look at some of Korea's past history, particularly through photographs that I've found. Then I'll look at events of the war, and I'll look at the events after the war, because the war is not over. We know from Kim Jong-un's posturing, it's still a dangerous place. And that is my, oh, did I just disappear? That is my program, and I can't get out of here. Oh, well, can you?
Thank you so much for that preview, Walter.
Pardon?
We can still see you, but
okay.
You did great. Thank you for.
That's it, Jill.
Thank you for.
In a nutshell.
Thank you for taking watching that on Zoom, and our condolences about Dick Raybould. We know that he passed, and I'm glad that you're including him in your class. So we look forward to that, Walter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Dr. Kadan, who is going to teach about the Islamic Golden Age. We'll turn the time over to you. Dr. Kadan, welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you today, and just to explain very quickly about a course, which is under the title of Islamic Golden Age, or what we call him, for example, Islamic Civilization or Islamic Renaissance. Actually, this course, I suppose that it's very important. First of all, I am from Syria. I left Syria 4 years ago because of the war, which is still ongoing there. And I came here now, I'm a professor at Weber State University. So the course itself, it consists of maybe about 5 to 6 classes. I would like to begin it by introduction about Islam, to correct some fallacies about Islam, especially that we are living nowadays on the age of what we call it Islamophobia. And then I would like to explain about the reality of Islam, actually. And you know that Muslim people nowadays, they are about 1.8 billion people worldwide. It means every 4 people worldwide, one of them is Muslim people. And then I would like to explain about the beginning of Islam, about the Prophet Muhammad himself, about the most important issues regarding Islam. After that, I will begin talking on Islamic Golden Age, which began something around 7th century and lasted until 13th or 14th century. And during this time, it was began in establishing what is called the Wisdom House in Baghdad, which was established by Caliphate, Muslim Caliphate at that time, and attracted many scholars worldwide from all over the world at that time to live in Baghdad and to contribute in different branches of sciences. So in addition to that, I would like to mention that Islam itself encouraged the people to seek knowledge, as it mentioned in the Quran itself, and by the encourage of the caliphates at that time, as I mentioned, attracted many scholars from worldwide to live in Baghdad, and from Baghdad, they were spread to Damascus and to north of Africa and to Spain as well, which was at that time under the rule of Muslim people. So I would like to review the issues of different sciences at that time, especially the field of mathematics, especially that algebra, which was actually which was created by Muslim scholars at that time. And then I would like to concentrate on the development of different branches like astronomy, like chemistry, medicine, and many other different sciences. And the importance of these sciences is that firstly, it translated all of Latin sciences at that time into Arabic language. By the way, Arabic language for the 800 years, it was the language of science, exactly such as English nowadays is the language of science. And all of these sciences translated first into Arabic, and then from Arabic, Muslim scholars, they actually developed it, and they innovate many of things, and they developed it, and then they translated it into Latin language. And according to many of European scientists, they believe that without these Muslim sciences entered Europe, without these sciences, maybe European Renaissance could be delayed many centuries later. Also, I would like to mention to the different art, which was widespread at that time. And mostly, I would like to mention to the poetry, for example, different branches of art. And the most important thing, which is still until today, we can witness it in many different parts, and especially Muslim countries, which is Islamic, what we call it Islamic architecture. Islamic architecture is very, very important one. And then I would like maybe to conclude my course by talking on decline. What is the causes behind the decline of Islamic civilization? Why all or the majority of Muslim countries still until now they are living in unfortunately in a condition which we call it underdeveloping countries? Why it is? I would like just to shed light on these issues. I think this is very briefly about different aspects of my course, which is under the title of Islamic Golden Age. I'm expecting your questions about that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kadan. We appreciate that, and we look forward to your class. Next up, we have Kevin Peterson, who will be teaching Winston Churchill, the Soldier of Freedom. Kevin?
Yes, thank you, Jill. First of all, I'd like to, I'm not sure, is my image up there, Jill?
Yep, we can see you. We can see you. We see
Okay.
you.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say greetings from Palm Desert, California, to my friends back in Salt Lake City. And I look forward to teaching again for the Osher Lifelong Living Institute. My course for the winter is going to be Winston Churchill, the Soldier of Freedom. And I just, in my 2 or 3 minutes, I'd like to kind of explain where I'm coming from a little bit. Winston Churchill was a very unique man. He was convinced from an early age that his destiny was going to be to lead Great Britain in a desperate struggle for survival. He believed that when he was a boy, when he was a young soldier, and on into his adult years. That dream, that conviction seemed to be very deferred by the 1930s, when Churchill was in his 60s. He, by that time, he was regarded by the elites of Great Britain, England, as a brilliant but erratic, more or less washed up, has-been politician who was had a strange, was probably a little bit of a warmonger. The elites in Britain at that time thought that they could work with Adolf Hitler and Adolf Hitler's Germany, that they could partner with him in dominating the world. Churchill didn't see it that way. To Churchill, Adolf Hitler and all he represented was pure evil and had to be resisted at all costs. His chance, of course, finally came in the 1930s. He was a unique man in that he really believed in his country. One historian wrote about Churchill. He said, "One man towered above them all." Churchill had many critics. They called him ambitious, audacious, arrogant, theatrical, pompous, domineering, all of which were true. But what he left for posterity was a loftiness of soul, undaunted courage, fiery and passionate eloquence, and unbounded faith in the cause for which he stood. He was not the champion of a class or a party. He lived for Britain, loved her with intense devotion, knew her, believed in her, and made her great as his own, or rather he was himself Britain incarnate. An underlying message of this class is that we also are living in very dangerous and treacherous times. And the question will have to be asked, is there a Winston Churchill out there who we can call on? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. That's an inspiring class at just the right time in January. So we look forward to having you. We have our final history topic professor, which is going to be Shannon Morensky. He will be teaching us about the history of funeral service. Shannon?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you for the opportunity. Before I begin, just a shout out to Jill. Thank you so much. What a remarkable forum this is for learning and for just discussing further topics. It's a pleasure for me, an honor for me to be a part of the Osher program and be able to teach something I'm so passionate about. So thank you. So my name is Shannon Warinsky. I'm a licensed funeral director in the state of Utah here, and I am anticipating teaching the class about funeral history and where funerals come from. One of the things that has persisted throughout all time is funeral services, ceremonies, beliefs regarding the dead, and how we as the living are still to care for them. During the course of the class, I do talk a lot about the Egyptians and their religious themes, their ceremonies, their functionaries, what they did throughout their society to care for their dead and those that had died. Also, too, we talk a little bit about the Greeks and the Romans and how during that culture and that civilization, they were really the first to introduce cremation, what cremation means and how that impacts us today. What do we do? What are some of the beliefs? What are some of the stigmas about cremation? Stigmas about preservation, embalming, different things like that. We talk a little bit about that. I'm appreciative of those that are in the arts section. They talked a little bit about Leonardo da Vinci. Interestingly enough, Leonardo da Vinci had so many talents and so much knowledge. He actually even influenced the funeral industry back in his time. I also too talk about the Civil War and how the funeral industry was influenced by the Civil War, how we prepared for our fallen soldiers and how we took care of them. Also too, we talk about the rise of the English embalmers and also the surgeons and how that influenced us here in the United States as the funeral industry and profession began to gather some steam. We talk also too about cemeteries and what cemeteries, different terminology in the cemetery means, what different cultures and customs and beliefs are in regard to those cemeteries as well. We also, I always try to see if during the course of the class, we can also too integrate some of the modern developments, some of the modern things that are going on within the funeral industry, just so people can kind of understand. It seems like for so many years, the funeral industry has kind of been shrouded in drapes and black coverings, and nobody really knows who to ask, where to get good information. And so what I like to do during the course of the semester or the course of the class is to open it up to have those that are in attendance talk a little bit about some of what their questions are, because oftentimes those questions go unanswered in other forums. So that's basically in a nutshell about what we talk about. We also too, during the course of the semester, I don't know if you can see on the video there, we talk a little bit about some of the technical skills that we as funeral directors possess. So I consider myself kind of a counselor, a psychologist, a chemist, an artist. You can see from the head that's to the side of mine here, this is something that we learn to do, is to create structures from the human body out of different material in case we need to do a restoration of a structure on the body. So I talk a little bit about how that's done and why and when it would be appropriate to do that. So I hope that you're interested, and I hope to see, I know in the past classes that we've done, we've had a lot of lively discussions, and that's not just funeral director humor. It's actually, we've had a lot of lively discussions regarding some of the topics that we've talked about. And I look forward to continuing the class and continuing teaching those that are interested in this topic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shannon. That sounds like a very interesting class that we can all use, unfortunately, at some point or another in our lives. So yeah. We'll go now to questions. We just have 2 questions and actually 2 endorsements from our audience. We have 2 questions for Walter Jones. So we'll call our history panel back. And Walter, are you with us? Okay, if you can unmute, Walter, we had 2 questions. One's kind of fun. Is MASH pretty close to the Korean War?
Okay, could you repeat that, please?
Is MASH pretty close to the Korean War, the portrayal of on MASH TV show?
Oh, MASH. MASH basically is Vietnam. A lot of Vietnam veterans resented MASH because it was a critical, in some ways, an analysis of Vietnam. There were MASH hospitals in Korea, mobile army surgical hospitals. They, from what I've read, the doctors and the staffs of the MASH in Korea did not act like the doctors and so forth of MASH in the movie and then the TV series. But there was a MASH. I read, this is just, and then I'll get off of this in just a second. But basically, I was reading one time about a doctor whose unit was overrun by the Chinese. And one of the Chinese officials who could speak English, one of the officers, walked into the operating room and told the doctor to come with him. And the doctor said, I'm working on somebody. The Chinese shot the man who was being operated on and said, come with me. That doctor spent 2.5 years in a North Korea, or a Chinese prison camp in North Korea. And he wrote a book on survival, the mentality of surviving. And he said, and this is how serious this was compared to the MASH movie. He said, the one thing he noticed among those who survived was the will to eat anything to stay alive. Those who quit eating died. But anyway, that's my take on MASH. Sorry about that. But
okay, thank you, Walter. One more question for you before we let you go. Who is the author of the book, This Kind of War?
Okay, let me spell it because the last name is it's difficult for me to remember. The first initials are T as in Tango, R as in Romeo. The last name is Fehrenbach, F-E-H-R-E-N-B-A-C-H. Fehrenbach. Now let me say one thing. I put my email in and people can email me if they want. I have a bibliography that I will share with people. And for the class, Osher, I hope, will provide that bibliography as well.
Yes, we certainly will.
Thank you. I have a bibliography if somebody wants it immediately. My email, walter.jones@utah.edu. So
super.
that's.
Thank you. Thank you, Walter.
You're welcome.
And Shannon, we had two questions for you.
Okay, sure.
Do you describe religious funeral procedures?
Yeah, throughout the course of the class, we do try to touch briefly upon that. It is kind of a vast area of discussion where there's so many different sects and beliefs. But for the most part, we do go over some of those religious beliefs and ceremonies of the different religions. Yeah.
Okay, and then one last question before we move on to our next topic of travel, which is, are you going to talk about the economics of the funeral industry? This comes from an Osher member whose father was a funeral director.
Yes. Throughout the course, we also, too, as we're kind of integrating in the modern era of funerals that we're in now, I do try to see if I can give us an economic view of that, of what has changed. I've been an undertaker now, or a funeral director now, for 26 years. And in that course of time, there's been a lot of different changes that I've even witnessed myself. And so, yeah, that's part of the topic that we bring up as we're discussing the modern day funeral scenario, is how economics have influenced and impacted the industry and also to the consumer.
Okay, great. Thank you so much to all of our history instructors. Appreciate you joining us today. We are going to move on to our final topic, which is the travel topic. And first up, we have Asa. I hope I say your name correctly. I will let you introduce your last name. Asa, take it away.
Hi, my name is Asa Perelzweig. I'm actually new to your Osher program, but I've taught at Santa Clara University Osher program for over 10 years. And in 2017, I've taken a group of Osher travelers to St. Petersburg. which is my hometown. That's where I was born and raised. And that's where my first job was actually as a tour guide. So now, with thanks to Zoom, I'm having this wonderful opportunity to join your Osher program and to take this class to all of you. And in this class, we'll explore the history of this wonderful city. I really believe that's the most magnificent city in the world. It used to be Russia's capital for over 2 centuries, and it still is Russia's cultural capital, and in many ways, it's sort of heart and soul. And Russians consider St. Petersburg sort of a window onto the West, onto Europe. And for us, coming from the West, we'll use St. Petersburg as a window into Russia, Russian culture, Russian history, Russian ideology. So we'll explore the 3 centuries of St. Petersburg's history, art, architecture. We'll visit its world-class museums. We'll see its only skyscraper. There's only one, but it is the tallest building in Europe. So when Russians do something, they go big time for it. We'll ponder the engineering challenges that are involved in building a major city. It has a population of over 5 million people now, and it stands on marshy soils, very unstable soils, with its magnificent cathedrals and palaces and a subway system that's to rival any such system anywhere in the world, both in engineering challenges and in its beauty. So it will be a real eye candy, I think, for everyone, and an eye opener for those of you who have not been to St. Petersburg. And I know now it's not possible to travel. And for those of you who had the chance to visit this beautiful city, it will be a deeper exploration of the corners of the city that you might not have seen with someone who is a native of this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Asa, it's nice to meet you virtually, and we look forward to traveling with you virtually this January.
Me too. Thank you.
Thanks again. Next up, we have Carol Masheter, who is local, not joining us from afar. She will be teaching life lessons from climbing the 7 summits and mountaineering. Carol?
Thank you, Jill, and thank you for the opportunity to teach through the Osher program. This will be my 3rd time around, so I'm sort of a new girl, but not completely inexperienced. I'd like to share the screen if I could. Great, and let's see, screen share. I am sharing the screen. It looks like, oh, okay. Got to go to the slideshow function here. Okay, cool. Well, who am I and why do I talk about mountaineering? I'm in my 70s, so I've done a number of things. I've been a research chemist in biochemistry and microbiology. I've taught university courses and done research in human development and relationships. And I've been an epidemiologist with the Utah Department of Health, trying to find ways to improve the health and safety of hospital inpatients. So I've done a number of things. More recently, I've done some mountaineering, and I still do that, though I'm in my mid-70s. And what I'd like to do is share you a little bit about the what, how, and the why of mountaineering, and some of the life lessons that it's taught me that I'd like to share with you, whether you're interested in climbing mountains or not. So for example, I came into mountaineering as a shy, anxious adult who was going through a big life crisis. And I found that though my life felt destroyed at the time, that this big life crisis was an opportunity for growth and for learning new experiences, new skills, and it ultimately led me into another line of work. Through life crises, I've learned how to change vicious cycles into benign cycles. So I'd like to share a little bit about that. As kind of a shy, anxious person, I've learned not to conquer stress, anxiety, self-doubt, and fear, but I've learned to manage them. And I'm happy to share some of those things that I've learned. Balance is so important, not just physical balance. Obviously, one needs to keep one's balance when climbing mountains, or things could go very badly indeed. But there's kind of a figurative and metaphoric balance, several types of that I'd like to share with you all as well. I had a really powerful lesson when I was climbing Mount Everest on how to transform an enemy into an ally. And we'll definitely talk about that. I've learned, I've been described as an entrepreneur, which means I like doing things on my own, I guess. But I've learned that we can climb a lot higher and a lot safer when we do it in competent teams. So I'll talk some about teams that work, teams that fail, teams that transform from failing teams into working teams. Really valuable, precious lessons I've learned on my various mountaineering experiences. And finally, it's never too late to do something extraordinary. We'll talk about that in the last class. So as a late bloomer, it seemed to take me forever to kind of figure out what I wanted to settle into. But by the time I was 50, I had settled into my dream job, teaching and doing research at the University of Utah. I had a guy in my life in a long-term relationship that I loved, and I thought he got me. And then I lost it all. I was denied tenure for reasons I still don't understand. And I found out that my guy was cheating on me. And though it felt like disemboweling myself, I had to end that relationship for my own health. Then it wasn't too long after that, my mother died suddenly out in Southern California, where I was born and raised. I was here in Utah. And my sister, my only now living relative, who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, became quite seriously ill. That all happened within 14 months. In 18 months. So 4 major life crises within 18 months. And I found my own health declining. My gut hurt all the time. I couldn't sleep. I was losing weight like mad. So I was scared. I consulted doctors. All the tests came back negative. I was diagnosed by process of elimination with severe irritable bowel syndrome, which tends to be strongly associated with stress. And you know, curiously, that gave me a sense of relief. I thought, oh, okay, now I know what the problem is. I need to figure out how to manage stress better. So I went to the mountains. Whoops. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So normally when we think of crisis, we think of some big dangerous or horrible catastrophic thing like a hurricane or an earthquake. I had an earthquake here recently. Fortunately, it wasn't too catastrophic. But I've found in my life, it's happened several times, that crisis, as miserable as it can be to experience, can also be an opportunity for real growth and to find new doors to open and experience new things, learn new skills. And it can be an opportunity to change vicious cycles that have become kind of ingrained in our lives and turn them into benign cycles. And I'll talk more in detail about what I mean by that during the actual course. So why mountains? Well, the short version is I found in the mountains I'm my best self. And I got a really good start when I moved here to Salt Lake in 1990 by joining the Wasatch Mountain Club. And we did all sorts of fun and exciting things like something called the Triple Traverse, which is a day-long kind of a technical hike. I wouldn't call it true mountaineering because we're not using ropes and some of the other tools of mountaineering, though we did use ice axes and crampons in the several times that I've done this climb. It takes about 14 hours and it's magnificent, it's strenuous, it's scary, it's thrilling. And I fell in love with mountaineering. And I decided to go a little further and explore rock climbing and ice climbing. So I hired guides and learned how to do that here in Utah. And then I wanted to try climbing really big mountains. I found myself with time on my hands. I didn't have a job. I had a little bit of money, not a lot, from my mother's estate. I didn't have a guy in my life telling me I couldn't do this because I was incompetent. And I thought, why not go to the Andes, go to the Himalayas and learn more advanced skills in high altitude mountaineering. And you know, I loved it. I learned a new sense of focus, a new sense of competence and confidence, even with my fear of heights and all my little anxiety difficulties. Well, one climb led to another, and I found myself as a woman in her early 60s attempting Mount Everest in 2008. And man, was that a hard teacher and yet a very effective one. I learned so much in the 10 weeks that it took me from leaving Salt Lake City to climb the mountain and come back. This picture, excuse me, for some reason I've got a frog in my throat.
Carol, we're just about out of time. Can you sum up in just like 30 seconds more?
Sure. Some of the lessons I learned was the enemy to ally and balance, figuratively and literally. More crises can happen in the mountains. This picture was taken in Papua province of Indonesia during our very grueling approach of 6 days through jungle, mountainous jungle, to get to the mountain we wanted to climb. One of my teammates fell in this rushing river and sustained a head injury. So we had to unite as a team, somehow find her, get her out of the river, and get her evacuated. So this team nearly fell apart because of this and other problems we were having. But some of us were able to go on. This is near the summit of Carsten's Pyramid, the peak that we were seeking to climb. There were 9 of us left in this expedition. I was the only woman. And I felt like on this trip, I met all 8 of my Prince Charmings at once. Summiting Carsten's Pyramid, some people in the mountaineering community call that the 8th of the 7 summits, led to my setting a world record. And that's a whole story in and of itself, is how it took almost 7 years for me to get in the Guinness Book of Records. But here I am, kind of obscured by some of the folks in the lower right-hand corner. So never too late to do something significant, folks. So even if you don't climb mountains or aren't interested in the mechanics of mountaineering, I think there might be something here that you can use in your own lives. So I hope you'll join me in January and February. Done. And
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Carol. That is a very inspiring story. Just what we need at this time of year. Next, and last but not least, we have Christoph Dressler from Go Learn, my colleague at Continuing Education, who will teach us about the tales of 6 cities. Christoph, let's turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm not in outer space. For some reason, from one of my previous meetings, my background is still existent. So instead of me messing around with it, I will just present with me sitting on some sort of planet of sorts. I think it's somewhere in Europe, in fact. So hello, the tales of 6 cities. I think each one of them is worth 6 lessons itself for Osher. So welcome everyone to Berlin, Prague, Vienna, Rome, Paris, and London. I'm hoping to give a sense of historic dimension of the rise and the fall of each of these cities and their associated empires, how these cities interact historically and also today, how one is never to be seen in a vacuum. I would love to introduce you to how I perceive these cities. As a little bit of a background, you may notice it through my accent. I am born and raised East German. I grew up behind the Iron Curtain, and in the making of my American character, I also was a tour guide at some point to Americans via this guy called Rick Steves. And so I toured Europe for him, introducing these 6 cities and others to his travelers. And you probably know him from PBS and his presence on the internet and TV. So these 6 cities, I toured with him, for him, with his clients. And so I would love to introduce you to some of the aspects as a tour guide. So this really falls into a mix between tourism, travel, but also history, and hopefully a little bit about, life and food and living, traveling. And while we're all cooped up right now, while we're all sitting sadly in my case, in my basement, and are locked up, I know that this pandemic will pass and we all will travel again. So hopefully I'll give you a few ideas about any of these 6 cities that you might want to visit later on, give you a few pointers, introduce you to some of these great museums and places that you could and will see when you travel again, And someone asked earlier, will these be recorded? Yes, if you have to miss a few minutes from my presentation, or if you're skipping a class or two, I will always record them. Not everybody does, but I will record them and I share them with those who have signed up for this tour de force of 6 cities. Jill, thank you for.
Thank you, Christoph.
It was a pleasure last one, and the next one will most certainly be as well.
Well, that sounds like just the right medicine that we need, a travel virtually around 6 cities during January and February of 2021. Thank you so much, Christoph. And thank you to all of our instructors. We didn't have any questions come up that weren't answered under travel, so we will let everyone go. We're almost on time, and we appreciate you staying with us, and we appreciate you joining us for our virtual open house. We will join again tomorrow for those who can make it for the other half of our winter offerings. The same time, 10 a.m. tomorrow, and then registration opens at 9 a.m. on December 11th. So email us or just go right online and sign up, and we will look forward to having you in January. Happy holidays to everyone. The Osher offices will be closed during the holidays, so we will see you in January. Thanks so much again, and goodbye, everybody.